Welcome back to this episode of EBM TV.
Where Matt is an absolute snake and he's throwing me under the bus. All right. Where, Adam?
Welcome back to this episode of EBM TV. On today's episode, our good friend Alan has brought down his immaculate XR5.
Today we're going to be installing the upgraded fuel injectors out of the RS and also the RS oil cooler so that we can upgrade the Dreamscience tune to MOD XRS.
Once we've done that, we're going to head down to the dyno and see what numbers it makes in comparison to the tune that's already in the car.
Let's get into it. I wish I could do what you do. Nothing. So to change it up a bit on this one, we're going to do a bit more of an instructional video. On this particular vehicle, we're going to have to remove a few things to gain access to the fuel rail. The airbox, we're also going to have to move the PCM out of the way, and we're going to have to remove the intake manifold and also this top engine cover just to gain access to some of the wiring out there. So I'm going to get into it now. Now that we've got the airbox out and the PCM moved out of the way, we're going to remove this top engine cover. There's two T30s in the holes just here, so we're going to remove those to pull this cover off, and that gains us access to the fuel rail pressure sensor wiring. Right, now that we've unplugged the wiring for the fuel rail pressure sensor, we're going to undo the manifold bolts, which are 8mm bolts, which are underneath the manifold here, to remove the top half of the plenum. We don't actually need to completely remove the plenum. We just need to move it out of the way so we can gain access to remove the injector rail out. So we're going to undo those now, move this out of the way, and then we'll remove the fuel rail. Now that we've loosened off the manifold, we're just going to place it just out of the way here, just so that we can gain access to the fuel rail. It's just for the room to actually move it out. Other than that, we could actually access all the bolts and the wiring without removing it, but there's just not enough room to remove the rail up out of the injector holes in the bottom half of the intake manifold. So we'll do that now, get the rail out and show you how to replace the injectors. To remove the fuel rail, we also have to remove the hard line that goes into the fuel rail. This is a bit of a weird system on these XR5s. So there is a little T15 that sits in the top here, which hopefully you'll be able to see from the top angle. Just here, this clip then removes out of here. We're going to have to remove the 8mm that holds the hard line in, just to give it enough room to actually push that hard line out before we remove the rail. If you've just had the key on or the vehicle's just been turned off, there will be fuel rail pressure inside the fuel rail. So before we pull the hose out, we're lucky enough that on the XR5, they have a Schrader valve in the end of the fuel rail. So we're just going to push on that now just to relieve any extra fuel pressure in there, just so you don't spray yourself in the face with fuel. Right, so the fuel rail will still be filled with fuel. As you can see, there's a little bit coming out of here now. Make sure you try not to get that on your paintwork. Also, when you remove the rail, there is another bolt here, a third bolt that you don't actually need to remove. That just holds this steel shielding on here. So we don't need to worry about that. There is only the two retaining bolts that you need to remove. Now we're going to head over to the bench. We're going to remove these injectors and put the new injectors in, and then get the rail back in. Now we're going to have to remove these three bolts here. We also are now going to have to remove the 8mm that we talked about before. That's going to gain us access to this rail here, which actually holds the injectors themselves in, and also the adapter for the fuel input from the pump in the tank. So let's get that done, and we'll put the new seals on and new injectors. All right, so now with the retaining rail removed, we're now going to remove each of the injectors. Then we're going to check inside the injector rail for debris, make sure there's nothing in there at all. Clean up the inside here, just give this a good clean down, make sure that it's all clean and tidy and no dirt gets in when we put the new injectors in. And then we'll get it reinstalled in the car. All right, there we go. As you can see, the ports are all nice and clean. Don't have any debris in there. We've cleaned up all the dirt and gunk from off the rail for when we install the new one. Now on your fuel feed line, which is just there, you can see this little O-ring. You want to check that before it goes back together. Make sure it's not torn, ripped or damaged, as that could cause a fuel leak. So I'll pull that out, have a quick look at it, lube it up, make sure that there's no dramas with it. If not, we'll replace it. No problems with our seal, so we're going to reuse this one. Let's get the new injectors in and get it back in the car. All right, as you can see with our new injector, we want to remove the protection caps. What you're also going to want to do is still inspect the seal, even though it's brand new. They could have been damaged in packaging and also in transit as well. So just make sure you take a good look at the seal, make sure it's not damaged or torn at all. So there's one seal at the top and one seal at the bottom as well, which will seal into the inlet manifold. And obviously also look at the injector end as well and just make sure that there's nothing in the end of there too. If there's any dirt or debris, it will destroy the spray pattern and then will cause a misfire or some sort of engine issue. So want to make sure that's all good before we put it back in. All right, so just before we put the injector in the rail, we're just lubricating the seal with a little bit of, you can use Vaseline. I wouldn't suggest using actual grease as it can damage the seal itself. So yeah, let's get into it. Now when we put this bolt back in now, we're going to leave it loose. And remember to tighten this when the rail's back in the car. The reason being, if we tighten it in a certain spot, as you could see, you could tighten it here, and it will allow for misalignment of these two holes. So we want to make sure that we can move this around so that when we put the rail back in, we can get the two retaining bolts to hold the rail back to the lower half of the manifold. So just before we put the rail back into the car, we're just going to check the intake manifold ports and just make sure there's no debris or any fuel or anything left in there so that we can put it in there and it's nice and clean. So just before we put the fuel rail back in, we're just going to lubricate these seals. Just makes it easier to push the rail in. Also, we do need to make sure that the alignment of the hard line into the rail into here is correct, so that we can get the clip back in on top. If it's not pushed all the way in, you can get the clip in and this will actually pop out. So you need to make sure that that is correctly placed inside here so that it actually engages the locking mechanism.
This weekend, who'd even go to a track day?
About to put the intake plenum back on. Just make sure that you check the seals in the bottom of the intake plenum. Make sure that they're all okay. I happen to know on this car that I put this plenum on about 2,000 Ks ago, so I know that these seals are all good. but this would be a good opportunity if you're going to replace these seals at the same time. So we'll get this bolted back on, and then we'll get the covers back on, and we'll have to put it up in the air to get the cooler. So let's get into it. We're now going to refit the top cover. This can be quite tricky to refit. It looks very simple, but you really need to make sure that this tag here and this tag here are hooked under their correct place. This does actually hold the front of the timing cover. So if this isn't connected into the correct spot, it won't hold the front of the timing cover correctly, and it may touch onto the timing belt. Also, just make sure that the seal here is fitted under the other part of the top cover. This will allow the correct fitment, and then we can put the bolts in. Got the top cover on, just checked and made sure that the catchments are holding onto the head, just to make sure that it's not moving around and the front cover doesn't move off. It's very important. I can't stress that enough. Make sure that those are clipped on down here and also down the back as well. Otherwise that cover won't retain the front of the timing cover. So please make sure that you check that if you do have this off at any stage for any work. Just going to put the PCM back on and then put the air filter back in. We'll get the car up in the air and do the oil cooler. Now that we've got it all back together, you just want to go back over mentally and also just have a look, just make sure that you've tightened up everything. Just give everything a bit of a pull, bit of a tug, and just go back through in your brain so that you know, yep, I've done all that up, so you don't have any leaks or any damage at all. So we'll just do that now, then we'll get it up in the air. All right, now we've got the car in the air. We need to remove the under tray to gain access to the oil cooler. Okay, so this is the upgraded RS oil cooler. It is quite significantly bigger than the standard one. Once you start heading up in power, you really want to get this on. It will just help allow for cooling of the oil system. So from the other camera here, I'll show you exactly the difference between the two of these. So you can see significantly bigger here to allow for extra cooling. We don't need to worry about replacing these hoses either, unless they're damaged or cracked. They will go straight on to this assembly as well. So we'll get this off here now. I'm going to get a drain tray, hopefully we won't lose too much coolant, and pull this off and get it replaced. Just put these clamps on here. This will hopefully allow us to not lose any coolant. Maybe a little bit come out of there, but it will stop us from having to drain the entire cooling system and refill it. We've got the old oil cooler off now, so we're going to put the new one on. Make sure you replace your new seals as well. These are very important. The old ones would have been on there for a long time. You want to get these replaced. They are quite expensive though, but definitely get them and replace them while it's off. Right, let's get it on.
Same area like. I've finished up putting the oil cooler on and we've done the injectors. Considering you've done nothing, mate, do you want to put this splash tray back on for us now?
Thanks, mate. I'll get that done for you.
Perfect, mate. I'm just going to go grab a coffee with Alan.
Thank you.
All right. I'll finish it off, mate.
Cheers, buddy. Yes. You've done all the work though. I feel like
yeah, I know. You took too long, mate. You took too long. Wowza.
Now that we've got the oil cooler all fitted up and the injectors in, just going to recheck the engine oil level, which should be fine, and I should just top up the coolant.
Okay, so the tune is done.
Thanks everybody for watching this episode of EBM TV. I finished up fitting the RS oil cooler and the injectors.
Now that he's done that, hopefully you've gained some hints and tips on how to do this job at home yourself. However, if you don't feel comfortable doing it, you can book in online at the Elite Brake and Mechanical website. Use the code #EBMTV10 to get your discount to get this job done.
If you do have any other queries or questions, you can give me a call at the shop as well. And if you'd like to see your car on the channel, you can get in contact with us at ebmtelly@gmail.com. I will put the link for all of that in the description. Until then guys, lick the envelope and send it. Oh, you're going to argue about it. Well done.
Nah, because what I'm going to do is in editing, I'm going to put #stamp.
Thank you everybody for watching this episode of EBM. That's the hardest part of the whole
You
thing.
tried to go in too fast then.
I just tried to-
You jumped the
I tried to
gates.
bang it
You
out.
jumped the
I
gates.
know, I should have took my time like I normally do. Welcome back to this episode of EBM TV, everybody.
Where Alan is joining us today. I've fucked it up already. I've already done it. Go again. Go again. Go again. Go again.
So much bigger words. I don't think I've ever used the word mechanism before in my life.
Welcome back to this episode of EBM TV. On today's episode, we teach Alan how to drive the car with the steering wheel up the right way.
That's a banger.
Done.
Put the wheel upside down so he has to turn it up the right way.
No, we're not doing that. Can we not do the...
Can I start again?
Keep that between us.
Adam! Give us away!
That's all I've got.
Alan has lent us his car so that we can dip this.
It's hard, isn't it? When you have to say more than welcome to EBM TV, it's fucking hard, isn't it?
It is.
Don't tell me how to feel.
Now tell me what to do.
Your job.
Hey, it is not Monday between 7:30 and 5. I'm off the clock. You cannot tell me what to do.
You okay?
No, you can't.
Okay.
No, you can't.
You don't have to listen, but I can tell you.
Don't listen anyway, whether it's work hours or not.
That's fucking true.
This hoist doesn't go high enough for me. Look, I would probably be a bit rougher with it if I wasn't on camera.
Sorry, mate.
Fucking snake. Don't do any work and then you're just talking when I'm trying to do work.
That's all I do is talk.
Slytherin.
Are you going to keep going or what?
Can you just give me a minute? I'm trying to compose myself.
You've had 10.
Trying to compose myself. I need complete silence while I get into character.
Sorry.
Complete silence.
Sorry.
Complete silence.
Sorry.
Complete silence.
Sorry.
Complete silence while I get into character. Complete.
Sorry.
Complete. Complete silence. Now I've lost it. Like when we go up in the air, I'm going to have to get that bolt off the under tray that I definitely did not drop.
Alright, as you can see guys, I finished up doing the oil cooler and the injectors. Now it's time to get the oil cooler on my... Oh, fucked it, I fucked it, I fucked it, I fucked it, I fucked it.
It's because you haven't done anything all day. You haven't warmed up.
I know, I'm still cold.
It's like the vulture off Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Thank you everybody for watching this episode. Thank you everybody for watching this episode of EBM TV. Fuck me.
That was the best one yet.